Were you excited when you saw the part as it was written for you?
When I first read the part, there were moments in it where Jane was too tame, and as the women of that day, she accepted things. She was a bit of a victim,
Right.
and didn't fight back.
Right.
And I had a meeting with, at that point, James Wolfe was my correspondent, Jimmy Wolfe, and I told him, I think she's too tame. I think she must rebel, especially in the big scene on the staircase. And he said to me, well, talk to Brian, have it out with Brian. So I had a meeting with Brian, I think in a hotel lobby or something like that, and I was talking to him and giving him my arguments. She's too passive, she's too tame, she accepts everything. And he was doodling, you know. He seemed to not pay attention to what I was saying. He wasn't looking at me, he was just doodling on a piece of paper. And finally I stopped thinking, it's so rude, he's not even paying attention to what I'm saying. And he handed me the piece of paper he was writing on and said, is this what you mean? He had rewritten the scene while I was talking, and he presented me with a perfect scene, and that's the way we played it. He was really very prolific, very... It came easily. Writing was just... He had the dialogue in his head. He could capture the dialogue of EastEnders and Little People, the girl in the basement, Mavis with... no, I don't mean Mavis, I mean with a cat, with Benji. Her Cecily Courtnature's
Yes.
dialogue, all that is just so well heard. It's quite remarkable.
I think the scenes with Pat Phoenix in the basement, Sophie, are wonderful. When she's thinking about her life and why Jane might have come to visit her because she wants to hear about her life.
What it's like to be a whore because she's going to be a whore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's quite remarkable. It's so discreetly done.
And Brian Forbes then wrote the film. He was the screenwriter. Wasn't originally going to direct the film. That was Jack Clayton.
Jack
wasn't it?
Clayton was supposed to direct it. It was going to be a very big film for the British film industry, and I guess the novel had been very successful and was quite confrontational, and it was a subject that was considered rather shocking and very, very new for England. So it was going to be Jack Clayton, but he called me and said, you know, I'm so sorry, but I cannot do it. I'm going through private problems, and I can't deal with my private problems and direct the film. So if you don't mind, I'm bowing out. And so Jimmy Wolfe asked me, who do you want as a director? And I said, I had just seen Whistle Down the Wind,
Right.
which was enchanting, which had quite a success. And I said, why don't we ask Brian? He's writing the script, he knows all about it, and I'm sure he'll do a magnificent job.
Which he did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we inherited Dickie at Edinburgh,
Okay.
because they were partners in Whistle Down the Wind, and so they were partners, and so Dickie came on and was really the producer, the closest to the film on an everyday basis. I think perhaps you call it the line producer, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, he at that point, started to take a very great personal interest in it.
And so obviously it's an adaptation of Lynn Reed Banks's bestseller book, The L-Shaped Room, at the time. Yeah. What?
I wish they were here. I would like to ask her. Maybe I did and forgot the answer. I wonder if this is her own story. I suspect it is.
Yes,
it's
based
very
in
personal.
The personal dimension of it. I wonder, these men who were directing, writing, producing, did they have anxieties at all about the way the story would develop in terms of Jane's pregnancy,
Yes.
the going through birth?
Censorship, you mean?
Yeah,
And all that.
the way in which this would be shown on screen.
I'm sure there was. The part, of course, was written for an English girl, an English actress, and I think the press was quite angry at first that the part had been given to a French actress. I think Jimmy Wolfe wanted to overcome this censorship problem. He was afraid that if it were an English actress, it would be more difficult to accept the story at that point. That story was extremely shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I learned a year later, or 6 or 8 months later, that Catherine Deneuve had a child out of wedlock. And so in France, there was nothing very shocking about the subject. But in England, it certainly was. And it really created quite a furor when the film came out.
And it's shown very realistically what Jane experiences as her pregnancy develops and when she goes into labour.
Yeah, well, I brought her in.
Yeah.
I had my 2 children. And as a matter of fact, that tired robe that I wear, by the way, is sort of sky blue and was my own. I had been pregnant in it, and you can see how it's distended because of it. And I was wearing that. I insisted on wearing this tired old thing for the scene. And it wasn't Luella Parsons, it wasn't Hedda Harper, it was the 3rd American press lady who came to see me on the set. And this scene where I opened the door and I'm seen for the first time with a 9-month belly, I heard her go, "Oh!" She nearly passed out because no American star had ever shown herself disfigured like this. It was something so shocking. And it was, I suppose I could say, rather courageous at the time. Usually you would see, I remember 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Mm-hmm. She's pregnant, she still has this little waist, and the only way you know she's pregnant is because she passes out, and then she admits, "I'm pregnant." But you never see any distorted figure.
Can we talk about the scene where Jane does pass out, which comes at the end of this very beautiful walk she takes through London past the shops?
Yeah.
And just to talk a little bit about the location filming of
Yes.
The L-Shaped Room.
Oh.
Because you seem to have filmed in a lot of different areas of London.
Well, I don't remember because I didn't know London all that well. But it seemed to me we were filming in the East End quite a lot. I mean, this is not makeup, this is not set designing. Mm-hmm. It's really how tawdry and run down London was in those days. We forget now. It's all spruced up, and the, the real estate is so expensive and valuable, but we forget how absolutely crumbling London was. And I remember when we did the scene where I come in for the first time, everybody was walking on tiptoes, and we were told to be very quiet because somebody was at death's door in the front room. There was such an impression of misery and poverty, and that I'm not quite sure what neighborhood this was, but
it's set in Notting Hill.
Notting Hill.
I wonder if it was. I wonder how much some of the filming, obviously, around the house was there.
Notting Hill certainly was very, very run down.
Yeah, and you do get a sense of people in the street, people on door fronts, outside the cafes. How did people react to you as a film crew in the streets?
Oh, all the people you see in the scenes are a member of the crew.
Right.
They're not real passers-by.
Right.
And the scene where I'm passing out is a scene we shot really 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning, and the people who cross me are members of the crew.
Right.
First, second, third assistants, makeup people, and so on and so forth. Wardrobe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it correspond? I mean, one of the things I really love about the shift from the novel to the film is the fact that it is a French girl who comes, that it becomes about something other than just a class kind of conflict or a class collision between British people, English people of different types. There's something quite exotic about Jane, something that gives her this genuine sense of encounter with people, I think, in the film. People who are very familiar types, perhaps, to a British audience, but somehow we see them through her eyes a little bit differently. There's this sense of discovery about England. And I just wonder if that corresponds in any way to your own experience as a young foreign woman coming to London.
No, I think Brian Forbes expresses his opinion very forcefully in the scene with Emlyn Williams. I mean, that's quite violent, quite a violent political expression of his opinion. There was a lot of class difference in those days, and it's quite explicit throughout the film, I think. But I think the fact that I was a French woman was considered a little easier for the public to swallow all this. But this was the kitchen sink period when there was quite a lot of expression of conflict between the classes.
It's even written into the structure, isn't it? The higher up the building we go,
Yes.
the lower the class, or the more of a misfit
Yes.
you are in that world.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was interested to see how many little bits of dialogue come from me.
Right.
Also, I had forgotten that, but I think this is something that Brian was particularly clever about. He would catch things that you would say, and he would throw it in. And the scene when I just go giggly because it's a girl, I think comes straight out of my experience.
How lovely. That's a beautiful scene.
No. You mustn't mix up the storytelling and the situation or the conditions of filming. conditions of filming were excellent. And what you don't notice at first is that I'm entirely dressed by Dior. Until later, it's Marks and Spencer. But the conditions were excellent, and a lot of time was taken to do the scenes right. We could do them again and again. We had all the takes we needed. What I found very refreshing, and yes, there was a great deal of difference between the kind of parts that MGM would offer me and this part. When I was at MGM, I wished I could do something realistic, something dramatic, and found it very difficult to get out of the musical comedy style of script I was offered and the style of acting that was expected of me. If a photographer came on the set, you had to smile, you had to be always pleasant, always good mood, there was all this phony sunshine that we had to adapt ourselves to. Whereas when I started on this, I said to Brian, now I expect you to wipe the smile off my face, because I've been so well trained by MGM to always look so pleasant and so pleased that I need your help to have realistic reactions. Of course, that's changed now. Actresses can play dramatic parts. Even MGM would allow that now.
But it is worth reminding ourselves that you won the BAFTA for Best Actress,
yes,
and the Golden Globe for Best Actress, and were Academy Award nominated for this role. It was a phenomenal,
an enormous departure
critical
for me.
success.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was, and I think it was an enormous success. And I don't know why I wasn't offered more dramatic parts after that. But I suppose my musical comedy career was really ingrained in me, and I kept being asked to do comedies. The next thing that happened after this was Cary Grant asking me to do his comedy, Father Goose, which I adored. And gosh, being asked by Cary Grant is the biggest fantastic gift. I was thrilled and adored that film. But I would have liked to have done more dramatic films and work more in England. And as I got handed the award by Prince Philip, an idea crossed my mind. This is the last part England is ever going to offer me. And I was right.
Gosh.
I was never offered anything else. As if, okay, now we've paid her, we've given her the award, let's forget about her.
Oh my goodness, well that's our loss, let
Well,
me say.
I wish I could have done more. I'm about to.
Oh wow, well I was going to take a question, but I think we have news.
Yes, I'm about to work on an English series where my son, Christopher Hall, is producer, and I'm playing not a dramatic part, but a fun part, and this is very, very thrilling. It's called The Durrells. It's from a novel by Gerald Durrell,
Okay.
which I'm sure everyone has read, My Family and Other Animals.
Oh wow, what exciting
So,
news.
They're in Corfu, and I think they start shooting tomorrow.
There we go, an exclusive.
Yes.
Yes.
I adore this one. I really think I was very, very lucky to get this part. But all told, I think I would have to say Gigi, because it's so, I don't know, it's a winner, and it was so delightful to do. This was really worthwhile and fabulous to do, but really painful. It's hard work, this. Some actresses go through very dramatic parts, and sometimes I wonder, how do they survive? Because it takes a great deal out of you emotionally. Tom was, I could almost say, for a dramatic part, he's the best partner I ever had. I think he was sensational. He was absolutely wonderful to play with. He was a modern actor. He put everything in his part. There was no sort of movie star skill, you know, my profile, this and that. It was just his heart speaking, his intelligence. He was remarkable actor.